As we grow older, the pursuit of love and happiness becomes even more important. Today, I want to talk about new relationships and the meaning of remarriage in the context of aging. Age is just a number. If we open our hearts, understand each other, and show respect, love that comes later in life can enrich our lives in unexpected ways. Often, we hear that a partner for our later years is vital. But the truth is, it's a journey that only the individual can truly understand. No matter how difficult life gets, it goes on. At this point, many elderly people choose to find new companions, and the phenomenon of remarriage among seniors is becoming more and more common. But what happens when a 60-year-old meets their first night with a new spouse? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flower Bed of Wisdom channel. Today, we're going to share the story of Grandma Song. At 60 years old, she surprised me with her decision to remarry. She never imagined she'd find love again after her divorce from her first husband. Her ex-husband, who was 8 years older than her, started dancing social dances and, after only 2 years, met another woman. When Grandma Song discovered the betrayal, she had no choice but to leave him. She's since learned that perhaps seniors should avoid social dancing. Though the intent may be innocent, others might not share the same sentiment. And for older individuals, these temptations can be hard to resist. Even if someone thinks it's harmless, others may see it differently. Her ex-husband was a case in point. He had always worked hard for their family, but ultimately succumbed to temptation. In the end, she decided to leave him, receiving half of their assets, which wasn't a large sum, but was enough to live comfortably in her retirement. She received around 30 million Korean won and a monthly pension of about 1 million won, which was enough to cover her living expenses. Now, living alone, her life has taken on a lighter feel. She met someone new late last year, Mr. Jang, a man who would change her life. Grandma Song had been living in a rental apartment and faced a problem with a leaking faucet. She called the landlord for help, but no one could come until later. Worried about the constant dripping, she casually mentioned the issue to Mr. Jang, expecting no immediate solution. To her surprise, he took it seriously. Not only did he come over to fix the faucet, but he also repaired her broken electric rice cooker and fan. Mr. Jang, who had worked as an electrician, offered advice on electrical safety as well. When his clothes got wet while fixing the faucet, she offered him a towel, but he declined, saying his house was nearby and he didn't want to dirty her towel. From then on, Mr. Jang began showing more concern for her, thinking from her perspective and often visiting her. Later, she learned that Mr. Jang was also a widower, and she too was divorced. Was this fate? As their relationship deepened, Grandma Song finally gathered the courage to confess her feelings. "How about we live together?" she suggested, initially proposing cohabitation. But Mr. Jang surprised her by suggesting marriage instead, saying, "Cohabitation doesn't offer guarantees. Let's marry instead." Shocked by his proposal, Grandma Song had never expected him to ask for remarriage. She had been content to settle for just living together, but he had taken the bold step to offer more. So, they decided to marry, starting a new chapter of their lives together. I hesitated for a moment, wondering who it could possibly be. I put the book down, adjusted my robe, and padded softly to the door. Peering through the peephole, I saw my neighbor Jack. His tall frame filled the small space of the lens, and even in the dim light of the porch, I could see the tension on his face. He looked troubled, but there was something else too, a hesitation, as if he wasn't entirely sure he should be there. "Jack," I asked cautiously as I opened the door a crack, "is everything all right?" His face softened slightly when he saw me. "I'm sorry for bothering you so late," he began, his deep voice a mix of apology and urgency. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair, a gesture that hinted at a storm of emotions beneath the surface. "I needed someone to talk to." I blinked, caught off guard. Jack and I had always been friendly, exchanging pleasantries during the day and occasionally helping each other out, watering plants or picking up packages, but this felt different. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "It's cold out there." He hesitated for only a moment before stepping into the warmth of my home. I closed the door behind him, feeling a strange sense of anticipation. Something about the way he carried himself made me realize that whatever brought him here wasn't trivial. Jack sat on the edge of my couch, his elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped together. I sat across from him, the steam from my tea curling lazily in the air between us. "Do you want something to drink?" I offered, unsure how to break the silence. He shook his head. "No, thank you." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I've had a lot on my mind lately, and I didn't know who else to turn to." I tilted my head, waiting for him to continue. There was an earnestness in his voice that made me lean in, as if his words carried a weight he couldn't bear alone. "You've always been kind to me," he said, his gaze meeting mine. "More than most people, and I think that's why I felt I could come to you." I smiled softly, unsure of what to say. His vulnerability was surprising, but it made me feel trusted, valued. "Whatever it is, Jack, I'll listen." He hesitated again, his eyes searching mine as if looking for reassurance. Then slowly, he began to talk about his loneliness, about the pressures of living up to expectations, and about the moments of joy he'd felt fading away over the years. His voice was steady, but tinged with a raw honesty that tugged at something deep inside me. As he spoke, I realized how much I'd underestimated him. Jack wasn't just my neighbor. He was a man carrying his own struggles, his own quiet battles, and I felt a sudden urge to ease his burden, even if only for a little while. "I didn't mean to dump all this on you," he said after a while, his voice softer now. "I just needed someone who wouldn't judge me." "I'm glad you came," I said simply, and I meant it. The hours slipped by as we talked. What started as a one-sided confession became a conversation that flowed like a river, winding through topics both deep and light. We laughed at shared anecdotes and fell silent at the weight of unspoken thoughts. There was a connection forming, one that felt as fragile as it was profound. At some point, I realized the clock had struck midnight. The dim lighting of my living room cast warm shadows, and the air was thick with a newfound intimacy. "I should go," Jack said, though his voice lacked conviction. He stood, but he didn't make a move toward the door. "Jack," I said softly, standing as well, "you don't have to carry everything alone." His eyes met mine, and for a moment the world seemed to still. There was something unspoken between us, a question, a possibility. He stepped closer, his hand reaching out to brush against mine, and the contact sent a warmth through me that I hadn't felt in years. "Thank you," he whispered, "for being here." And then he left, the door closing softly behind him. I stood there for a long time, my thoughts swirling. That night, something had shifted, not just between Jack and me, but within myself. I had been so caught up in my own routines, my own solitude, that I hadn't realized how much I craved connection. In the days that followed, our conversations continued. Jack and I found excuses to see each other, each interaction building on the last. There was a warmth, a spark that neither of us could deny. Looking back, that late-night knock was more than just a cry for help. It was the beginning of something neither of us had expected, a bond that reminded us both of the beauty in letting someone in.